There are structures scattered across this planet that shouldn't make sense. Stones weighing hundreds of tons, moved and stacked with a precision modern engineers still argue about. Massive earthworks visible only from the sky, built by people who never saw them from above. Temples older than farming itself, buried on purpose by the very people who built them. Today we're counting down 10 of the most mysterious, unexplained ancient structures on Earth. The ones that keep archaeologists arguing, keep engineers scratching their heads, and keep reminding us that the ancient world was far stranger, and far more capable than we usually give it credit for. Let's start the countdown. Number 10. The Longyu Caves in Zhejiang Province, China. In 1992, a group of local villagers decided to pump water out of what they believed were simply a few deep, flooded ponds on the outskirts of their town. Ponds people had lived alongside for generations without ever fully investigating. What they found once the water drained away was staggering. An enormous network of man-made underground caverns, carved directly out of solid rock, some chambers large enough to hold hundreds of people, with towering ceilings, sweeping support pillars, and walls covered in strikingly uniform parallel chisel marks, evidence of careful, deliberate craftsmanship on an almost industrial scale. Here's what makes this genuinely mysterious. There is no historical record, no ancient text, no local legend that clearly explains who built these caverns, when exactly they were built, or why. Estimates for their age vary widely, with some researchers proposing they could be well over 2,000 years old, based on limited surrounding evidence, but there's no firm consensus. Whoever carved out this massive underground complex, removing what would have been an almost unbelievable volume of rock by hand, left behind no written explanation of their purpose, no inscriptions naming a ruler or a religious purpose, nothing. An entire civilization's worth of labor, executed with remarkable engineering precision, and we don't even know their names. Number 9. The Longyu Caves lead us naturally to another underground mystery, but on a different continent entirely. Derinkuyu, in the Cappadocia region of central Turkey, is an ancient underground city carved into soft volcanic rock, and when we say city, we mean it in the fullest sense. Derinkuyu extends downward through roughly 18 distinct levels, reaching depths of over 200 feet below the surface. And archaeologists estimate it could have sheltered somewhere between 20 and 50,000 people at once, along with their livestock and food stores. This wasn't a simple set of tunnels. Derinkuyu included ventilation shafts engineered to keep breathable air circulating that far underground, wells for water access, storage rooms for food, stables for animals, and massive circular stone doors, some weighing hundreds of pounds, that could be rolled into place from the inside to seal off sections of the complex against attackers. Essentially an ancient version of a blast door, operable only from within. What makes Derinkuyu so remarkable is the sheer scale of planning and long-term engineering it represents. This wasn't dug in a single generation. Most researchers believe it was expanded over centuries, potentially originating as early as the Phrygian period, roughly the 8th century BCE, and continuing to be enlarged and used by successive cultures for well over 1,000 years afterward, including early Christian communities using it as a refuge during periods of persecution and later invasion. And yet, remarkably, this massive underground city was essentially forgotten by the outside world until 1963, when a local resident renovating his home knocked down a wall and discovered a mysterious room behind it. A room that turned out to be the entrance to this vast underground labyrinth. An entire hidden city capable of housing tens of thousands of people, sitting forgotten beneath a small Turkish town for generations. Number 8. We're heading now to the deserts of southern Peru, to the Nazca Lines, a set of enormous geoglyphs, huge designs etched into the desert floor that can only be fully appreciated from high in the air. The Nazca Lines include simple straight lines stretching for miles, geometric shapes, and most famously, enormous detailed figures of animals. A hummingbird, a monkey with a distinctively spiral tail, a spider, a condor with a wingspan stretching hundreds of feet. The lines were created by the Nazca culture, most likely between roughly 500 BCE and 500 CE. Using a surprisingly simple technique, removing the reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles that cover the desert surface, exposing the lighter-colored ground underneath. Simple in method, but staggering in execution, because these designs are so large, some stretching for hundreds of feet, that their overall shape is essentially impossible to fully perceive from ground level. You could stand right in the middle of the hummingbird figure and have no idea what you were looking at, which raises the obvious question that's fueled endless speculation for decades. How did a civilization with no known means of flight create designs specifically intended? It would seem to be viewed from far above the ground. The most widely supported archaeological explanation today is that the lines likely held ceremonial or religious significance, possibly connected to water worship or astronomical observation, meant to be experienced not necessarily by looking down from above, but by walking along them as part of ritual processions. A kind of sacred pathway, experienced from within rather than viewed from without. But the sheer scale and precision of some of the larger figures, executed by a culture working entirely at ground level, remains a genuinely remarkable feat of planning and engineering. However, the intended viewing experience actually worked. Number 7. From lines in the desert to a wall in the sea. Off the coast of the Japanese island of Yonaguni lies a massive underwater rock formation known as the Yonaguni Monument. Discovered by a local diving instructor in 1986, the structure features strikingly geometric elements, flat terraces, sharp right-angled edges, what almost looks like carved staircases, and distinct rectangular blocks that, to many divers exploring the site, look unmistakably artificial, like the ruins of a submerged temple or pyramid. And this is where the Yonaguni Monument becomes one of the most genuinely contested sites in this entire list, because the scientific community remains sharply divided. Some geologists argue that the formation, while visually striking, is very likely a natural feature, explained by the way this particular type of sandstone naturally fractures along consistent geometric lines, a phenomenon that does occur elsewhere in nature and can produce surprisingly regular, angular shapes without any human involvement at all. Other researchers, including some who have studied the site extensively, argue that certain features, particularly some very precise, deliberate-looking carved elements, are difficult to fully explain through natural processes alone, and suggest at least partial human modification of a naturally occurring rock formation. If any human involvement is eventually confirmed, the implications are enormous, because the site would have needed to be above sea level to be carved by human hands, meaning it would date back to a period before rising sea levels submerged it, potentially over 10,000 years ago, which would place it among the oldest known monumental structures on Earth, predating both the pyramids of Egypt and Stonehenge by thousands of years. It's a genuinely unresolved scientific debate, still playing out today, between geologists and archaeologists. Number 6. Pumapunku, part of the larger Tiwanaku archaeological complex in modern-day Bolivia, near the shores of Lake Titicaca. Pumapunku consists of a series of massive stone platforms and structures, but what makes it so remarkable and so puzzling is the precision of its stonework. Some of the individual stone blocks at Pumapunku weigh well over 100 tons, and yet feature perfectly straight edges, precise 90-degree angles, and interlocking geometric cuts so exact that some of the stones fit together almost like machine-manufactured components rather than hand-carved ancient masonry. The Tiwanaku culture that built this site is believed to have flourished roughly between 500 and 1000 CE, and researchers have proposed various methods they may have used, including the use of copper clamps to fit stones together, and possibly moving these enormous blocks using a combination of human labor, ramps, and log rollers, techniques used by other ancient cultures for large-scale stone transport. But questions remain about the specific tools available to the Tiwanaku culture capable of achieving this level of geometric precision, particularly the sharp, clean interior angles found in some of the more intricately cut stones. Cuts that some modern stoneworkers have noted would be genuinely challenging to reproduce even with certain modern tools, let alone the tools believed to have been available at the time. It remains one of the most technically impressive and technically puzzling examples of ancient stonework anywhere in the Americas. Number 5. Stonehenge. On Salisbury Plain in southern England, one of the most famous ancient structures in the entire world, and despite that fame, still genuinely mysterious in several key respects. Stonehenge was built in several distinct phases over an enormous span of time, roughly beginning around 3000 BCE and continuing to be modified for well over 1,000 years afterward. meaning generations of people, likely with different cultural and religious contexts, all contributed to the site as it evolved. The mystery here isn't really whether Stonehenge exists. Obviously it does, but rather several specific, still debated questions. First, how exactly were the massive sarsen stones, some weighing over 20 tons, transported from quarries several miles away, without the wheel-based transport technology available to later civilizations? Second, and even more remarkably, how are the smaller bluestones, which recent geological research has traced to a specific set of quarries in Wales, transported roughly 150 miles to reach Salisbury Plain, a transport puzzle that remains genuinely debated, with theories ranging from human portage over land routes to transport partly by water along rivers and coastline. And third, perhaps the biggest mystery of all, what was Stonehenge actually for? The monument's alignment with the solstices, particularly the sunrise on the summer solstice and sunset on the winter solstice, strongly suggests some kind of astronomical or calendrical function, was likely deeply significant to its builders. But whether Stonehenge served primarily as a religious temple, a burial ground, which human remains found at the site, do support, a gathering place for seasonal ceremonies, a symbol of political unification bringing together different communities in a shared monumental project, or some combination of all of these purposes, remains an active area of ongoing archaeological research and genuine scholarly debate, even after centuries of study. Number 4. The Great Serpent Mound. In present-day Ohio, in the United States, one of the largest and most famous effigy mounds in North America. Stretching over 1,300 feet in length, this massive earthwork, built up entirely from carefully piled earth, depicts an enormous serpent with a curling tail and what appears to be an oval shape held in its open jaws, a shape some researchers interpret as an egg, and others interpret as a representation of the sun. The mystery surrounding the Great Serpent Mound is twofold. First, there's genuine ongoing debate about exactly which ancient culture built it and precisely when. For a long time, researchers primarily associated it with the Adena culture, but more recent radiocarbon dating from excavations has produced results some researchers associate instead with the later Fort Ancient culture, complicating the timeline and suggesting the site's history may be more complex, possibly involving construction or significant modification by more than one culture across different periods. Second, and even more intriguing, is the mound's apparent alignment. Some researchers have proposed that specific curves and the head of the serpent align with the setting sun on the summer solstice, suggesting the monument may have functioned as a kind of massive astronomical calendar embedded permanently into the landscape. Adding another layer of mystery entirely, the mound sits atop a geological formation some researchers believe was created by an ancient meteorite impact, leading to intriguing, though far from universally accepted, speculation about whether the site's location was deliberately chosen for reasons connected to that ancient impact, perhaps even reflecting some form of long-preserved cultural memory of the event itself. Number 3. The Pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Arguably, the single most famous ancient structures on the planet, and yet, remarkably, still not fully understood in certain key respects, even after 2 centuries of dedicated archaeological study. We know a great deal about ancient Egyptian civilization broadly, but several specific engineering questions about the Great Pyramid in particular remain genuinely debated among Egyptologists and engineers. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BCE, consists of an estimated 2.3 million individual limestone and granite blocks, some of the largest granite blocks weighing as much as 80 tons, quarried from sites hundreds of miles away and transported to the construction site using a combination of techniques still actively studied and debated, including evidence for wetting sand ahead of massive sleds to reduce friction, a technique actually depicted in ancient Egyptian artwork itself. But the truly remarkable mystery lies in the pyramid's precision. The base of the Great Pyramid is level to within just a couple of centimeters across its entire massive footprint, and the 4 sides of the pyramid are aligned to true north with an accuracy that modern surveying would be proud of, all achieved without any of the tools we'd normally associate with that level of precision. Exactly how the ancient Egyptians achieved this alignment, and how they organized the logistics of quarrying, transporting, and precisely placing over 2 million stone blocks within what's believed to have been roughly a 20-year construction period, remains an area of active research, experimentation, and genuine scholarly disagreement, even as our broader understanding of who built the pyramids. Contrary to some popular myths, ordinary skilled laborers rather than slaves. According to substantial archaeological evidence found at nearby worker settlements, has become considerably clearer in recent decades. Number 2. Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. And this one might be the single most important archaeological discovery of the past century. Precisely because of how thoroughly it upended our previous understanding of when complex human civilization actually began. Göbekli Tepe consists of massive carved limestone pillars, some over 16 feet tall and weighing many tons, arranged in circular enclosures. Many of the pillars featuring detailed carvings of animals, including foxes, boars, snakes, and birds. Here's what makes Göbekli Tepe so genuinely revolutionary. Radiocarbon dating places its construction at approximately 9600 BCE, making it roughly 11,000 years old, which means it predates Stonehenge by around 6,000 years and predates the invention of pottery, writing, the wheel, and most significantly of all, the widespread adoption of settled agriculture. For decades, the standard archaeological understanding was that agriculture and settled farming communities came first. And only once people had stable food surpluses and settled village life did they develop the social organization necessary to build large, complex, monumental structures. Göbekli Tepe suggests, remarkably, that the order of events may have actually been reversed, at least in this case. That the desire and social organization to build a massive ceremonial site may have come first, potentially even helping to drive the eventual development of agriculture, as the large workforces needed to build and gather at Göbekli Tepe required a reliable, concentrated food supply nearby, adding yet another layer of mystery. At some point, the people who built Göbekli Tepe deliberately, carefully buried the entire site under tons of packed earth and rubble, seemingly on purpose, rather than it being abandoned to gradual, natural erosion and decay. Why an ancient society would go to the enormous effort of intentionally burying a monument they'd clearly invested tremendous resources into building remains one of archaeology's most fascinating open questions, with theories ranging from a deliberate ritual, closing of a sacred site, to a change in religious practice rendering the older structures obsolete, but no definitive consensus, which brings us to number 1, the Sacsayhuaman Fortress Complex, on a hilltop overlooking the city of Cusco, Peru, once the capital of the Inca Empire. Sacsayhuaman features massive zigzagging stone walls constructed from some of the largest individual stone blocks used in any ancient construction project anywhere in the world, with some blocks estimated to weigh well over 100 tons, and a few of the largest possibly exceeding 200 tons. What earns Sacsayhuaman the top spot on this list isn't just the sheer size of the stones. It's the precision with which they were fitted together. The stones are irregularly, almost puzzle piece shaped, no two alike, and yet they interlock so tightly and so precisely that, famously, it's genuinely difficult to fit even a single thin blade or piece of paper into the seams between them, despite the complete absence of any mortar holding the stones together. This construction technique, sometimes referred to as polygonal masonry, also appears at other Inca sites, but reaches its most extreme and impressive expression here at Sacsayhuaman. The genuine engineering mystery is twofold. First, how the Inca, working without iron tools, without the wheel for transport, and without any known system of pulleys for lifting, managed to quarry, transport, and lift stones weighing well over 100 tons, moving them significant distances across challenging mountainous Andean terrain. And second, and perhaps even more impressive, how they achieved such extraordinarily precise interlocking fits between irregularly shaped stones, a technique that provided genuine practical benefit. Incidentally, because this interlocking polygonal construction proved remarkably earthquake resistant, allowing many Inca structures built using this method to survive significant seismic activity that has damaged or destroyed more rigid, rectangular stone construction in the same region over the centuries since. Various theories have been proposed, including the use of massive log rollers, earthen ramps built up gradually alongside the rising walls, and large workforces of laborers coordinated through the Inca Empire's famously sophisticated system of organized labor and resource management. But the precise techniques used to achieve this level of fit and finish on stones of this scale remain a subject of genuine ongoing study and admiration among engineers and archaeologists alike. And that brings us to the end of our countdown. 10 structures spanning 6 continents and literally thousands of years of human history, from underground cities carved into volcanic rock, to massive geoglyphs etched into desert sand, to a monument so old it predates farming itself. What strikes me most, looking at all 10 of these sites together, isn't just the individual mysteries who built them, exactly how, exactly why. It's what they collectively tell us about ancient people in general. Every single culture on this list, separated by oceans by thousands of years, by completely different environments and completely different available technologies, arrived independently at monumental architecture, at large-scale organized labor, at genuine engineering sophistication, often achieving results that still challenge and impress modern engineers equipped with tools these ancient builders could never have imagined. We tend to think of technological progress as a straight line, moving steadily upward from primitive to advanced. But structures like these are a powerful reminder that human ingenuity, creativity, and sheer determined engineering skill have shown up again and again throughout our history, in places and eras we sometimes underestimate, leaving behind mysteries that, centuries and even millennia later, we're still working to fully understand. And maybe that's exactly what makes these sites so enduringly fascinating. Not that they prove some hidden, unknown history, but that they prove something almost more remarkable. That ordinary human beings working with the tools and knowledge available to their time were capable of achievements that still leave us standing in front of these stones today, quietly amazed, and still asking exactly how.